Want to know why? Ask how. Howard the Humongous. There are a few things you have to understand about the so-called peaceful demonstrations on the border between Gaza and Israel. They were not peaceful, and they were not demonstrations. They were genocidal. The goal was to exterminate Jews. As Yahya Sinwar, one of the members of Hamas, which is the party running these riots, said, their goal is to, quote, to wipe out Israel, close quote. To wipe Israel off the face of the map. That's a quote from Hamas's Iranian backers. In fact, they stencil it on their rockets. When these protests were planned and announced 3 months ago, the aim was obvious: to force the Jews to do as much killing as possible. As much killing of Gazan civilians. Why? The more Gazan civilians you can force the Israelis to kill, the more you can make the Israelis look like monsters. The more you can delegitimize the Jewish state and turn the world against it. And it's working. The Democratic Party, my party, is turning against Israel. In a recent Pew poll, a new one, 27% of Democrats sympathize with the Israelis. 25% sympathize with the Palestinians. Nearly as many Democrats sympathize with the Palestinians as sympathize with the Israelis. But what do the Palestinians really want? They want the world to come to their side. They want the world to become as anti-Semitic as they are. They want something more. They want a new Holocaust. Why? Because their prophet Muhammad built Islam by pulling off 4 Jewish genocides and Jewish ethnic cleansings. You can read the whole story, complete with over 1,000 references to Muslim sources, in my book, The Muhammad Code, or you can read it in the original biographies of Muhammad written by Muslims in roughly 900 AD. You can read the story of these 4 genocides and ethnic cleansings in Al-Tabari and Ibn Ishaq. Or you can read it in many of the texts with the story of Muhammad's life written for children in Muslim biographies that are freely available online in the English language. Many Muslim leaders are proud of those genocides. They want to repeat them. The Muhammad Code, or one of Muhammad's most celebrated killing sprees against Jews, took place in 629 AD, almost 1,400 years ago. Muhammad attacked a peaceful Jewish village called Khyber, actually a small city. He killed the men, turned the women into sex slaves, and divided up the property among his killers, his holy warriors. 4 days ago, Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh spoke to the so-called peaceful demonstrators at the Gaza border fence. And what did the crowds chant? Khyber, 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 O Jews, the army of Muhammad will return. In other words, the so-called peaceful protesters at the Gaza border were calling for a slaughter, a genocide, the kind of genocide that Muhammad took pride in. This is not peaceful, and it is not what we would call a protest. It's what we would call a riot of murderous, monstrous racists. Now, when I gave this script on 545 radio stations 2 nights ago, I got hate mail calling me a piece of shit and questioning the honesty of what I've just told you. So let me just dive into a couple of Islamic sources to give you a sense of the deep and genocidal hatred of Jews that is built into Muhammad's version of Islam, which is the only version of Islam that is considered sacred and holy. The hatred of Jews did not begin with the establishment of Israel in 1948. It began with Muhammad in 622 AD, 1,396 years ago. Muhammad was 3 things: a racist, a bigot, and an anti-Semite of the worst kind, a genocidal anti-Semite. In roughly 880 AD, one of the first 2 Muslim biographers of Muhammad, Abu Ja'far Muhammad al-Tabari, reported that the Prophet Muhammad said this: "Whoever of the Jews falls into your hands, kill him." The Hadith, the holy books of Islam, have 4 different versions of the following commandment. Quote, "The hour, the day of judgment, will not take place until the Muslims fight the Jews and the Muslims kill them. And the tree will say, 'O Muslim, servant of God, there is a Jew behind me. Kill him.'" Sheikh Abdul Aziz al-Qari, the Imam of the Masjid Quba Mosque and professor of Quranic recitation at the Islamic University of Medina, one of Islam's 2 holiest cities, says about the Jews, quote, "All their men should be beheaded, their properties be seized and distributed among the Muslims, and their women and offspring be held captive." In other words, be turned into sex slaves. Back to the quote. "This is the judgment of Allah with regard to the Jews." The Quran itself says that Allah transformed the Jews into apes and swine. Mohammed Heikel, a former high-level Egyptian politician and mainstream newspaper editor in Egypt, says in his mainstream Muslim biography of Muhammad that the Prophet Muhammad realized, quote, "There could be no peace with the Jews as long as they were not thoroughly destroyed," close quote. No wonder the founding document of Hamas, the group managing the riots in Gaza, says, quote, "Israel will exist and will continue to exist until Islam will obliterate it, just as it obliterated others before it," meaning just as Muhammad obliterated Jewish communities in his heyday. That is the statement of an imperialist, colonialist power eager to rule over others. And it is profoundly genocidal. This is Howard the Humongous, speaking to you from the future. It's your job and my job to make, or, want to know why? Ask how. And now for the sleazy, slimy, infamously difficult little off button.